Let's go
Where are we going?
to some sport events. That's where we're headed to. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's the one and only Camlish. It is 37 minutes past the top of the hour, and I am coming to you live from the Black Hot Fire Network. Yeah, yeah. I'm even getting my own updates, okay, that I'm live. So you better be here. But anyway, yeah. We'll be talking about the upcoming final game of the Europa League that is tomorrow, which is between Tottenham and Manchester United. Will because it's everything that the sporting world, especially in this country, is talking about right now before the Champions League final, and it's going to be a game that is going to be make or break for a lot of for both these clubs. Uh, Postecoglou is getting fired no matter the result, but he'd like to live with the trophy. He always says he wins a trophy in his second season. Amorim is trying to drive Manchester United into the Champions League so that he can get more funds to spend in the rebuild of the squad. But yeah, let's see what happens with that because everybody is trying to get the best possible deal for their club. But before we get into any specifics, we have to check what Fabrizio Romano has been saying. And kama kawaida, I will be sharing this video with you right about now so that we can both react together.
So the conversation is advanced with the player in terms of contract terms. Hey guys, Fabrizio Romano here. Welcome back to the channel. As always, to keep you posted on the transfer market today, guys, something important to say on Man United. We have to mention Mateus Cunha, but also more things like Milos Kerkez, Alvaro Carreras, Victor Gyökeres, Jonathan Tah. Let's jump into it together. And so today, guys, I want to open the video with an exclusive story from the morning, a story I've been telling you for weeks in terms of negotiations, discussions, interest, possibilities. But the exclusive story from the morning and what I can tell you today is that Mateus Cunha is on the verge of joining Manchester United from Wolves. The deal is being completed, is not completed yet, so let's wait for the final steps of this deal, also because Man United will have to approach Wolverhampton and pay the 62.5 million euros release clause, but they will try to find a solution together on the payment structure, on the deal structure. So there will be discussions to follow in order to close the deal between the clubs. But the player said yes to Manchester United. After spending 2 weeks in presenting the project, discussing about the view for next season and for the future, Cunha said yes to Man United, and he did that before knowing what happens with Champions League football. So before the Europa League final against Tottenham, Champions League or not for Man United, it doesn't make any difference to Mateus Cunha, who said yes to the Red Devils. Okay. He wants to play for Man United. He's attracted by the project. He's attracted by the history of the club. He's attracted by the future at Manchester United, also by the coach, Ruben Amorim. They both speak Portuguese. The connection is very good. So Mateus Cunha wants to go to Man United. The contract is almost ready. There are still some final details to clarify between the lawyers of Mateus Cunha, the agents of Mateus Cunha, and the Manchester United, but the deal is moving to the final stages. So Manchester United are ready for the first edition of their summer transfer window. Then, my information is that Man United can also add the one more player in kind of number 10 position, so to play behind the striker. There is a possibility, but will be based on outgoings. So Cunha is expected to join, and one more player, depending on what happens with the outgoings. So this is the plan at Manchester United. In terms of striker, guys, remember what I told you about Victor Gyökeres in the recent months and also in the last 24 hours. Gyökeres is leaving Sporting. Gyökeres is going for sure. Gyökeres will leave for way less than 100 million euros release clause. My information is something around 65 million euros package. Can be 60 plus add-ons, can be 65 with add-ons included, but the package will be around 65 million euros with add-ons to be part of this deal structure. So let's wait for this point because it's going to be a really important one, but for sure Viktor Gyökeres will leave for this transfer fee. Man United are still there, according to my information from Viktor Gyökeres. We know there is also interest from Arsenal. There are several clubs interested in the player, but for sure these two clubs maintain a strong interest in Viktor Gyökeres. Then after mentioning Gyökeres, guys, and all these stories, also Mateusz Cunha, another big name of the summer for sure is Florian Wirtz. Today, important information on this transfer battle, transfer saga. Manchester City have decided to leave the conversations at the moment for Florian Wirtz. Why? Because they believe internally at Man City that the player would be too expensive in terms of transfer fee, in terms of salary, in terms of commission. So many factors that make this deal too expensive. Man City leave the conversations, and Morgan Gibbs-White remains a strong options in the list of Manchester City for this summer. So for sure, Gibbs-White is one of the names they have at number 10. At number 8, the priority remains Tijani Reinders from AC Milan. But also important to say that for Florian Wirtz, Bayern remain there. Bayern internally maintain their confidence. Bayern internally maintain their feeling that at the end the player will join them. So Bayern management remains very optimistic on this transfer, but Liverpool are doing their job. What are Liverpool doing? They met with the parents of the player, they presented the project, they would be prepared to pay an important transfer fee, they presented a very ambitious plan for the future. So Liverpool wanted to position themselves on this one, like trying, doing their very best. Then, if the player decides to go to England, Liverpool are ready. Otherwise, if he goes to Bayern, Liverpool will have no regrets because they did their very best. But everything in this story depends on the player. Everything is in the hands of Florian Wirtz. So let's wait for the player to decide. At the moment, he has made no decision. I'm also told that Manchester City probably wanted Florian Wirtz to be faster with his decision. Man City didn't want to wait too long. Liverpool, for example, are willing to accept the player time. So let's see what happens in terms of timing. But for sure, the Florian Wirtz saga remains open now with Bayern and Liverpool involved in this story. For Liverpool, Jeremy Frimpong completed everything in terms of his medical as new Liverpool player, contract till 2030, salary okay, everything okay. So Jeremy Frimpong, new right back for Arne Slot. At left back position, it's important to mention that Liverpool are advancing in talks for Milos Kerkez, the Hungarian left back who is keen on joining Liverpool. So the conversation is advanced with the player in terms of contract terms, in terms of salary, in terms of project. Kerkez would be open and happy to join Liverpool. Now he's on the clubs. Bournemouth just sold Dean Huijsen for important transfer fee, £50 million. So they are not desperate for money. And this is why for Milos Kerkez, they maintain their point in terms of valuation. So there would be a conversation club to club. They are in contact, Liverpool and Bournemouth, for Milos Kerkez. So there is a negotiation ongoing. Let's see if they can reach an agreement. For sure, Milos Kerkez is an important target for Liverpool. They're working on that. The negotiation is ongoing. Now we have to see if they will be able to close also this signing. And don't forget that Liverpool keep following several players in a busy summer. Several times we mentioned, for example, also Jorel Hato. Hato is in the list at Liverpool. He's in the list at Chelsea too, after both clubs wanted to go for Dean Huijsen and they were not able to reach an agreement with the player. So for sure, it's going to be an interesting one to watch. In terms of left backs, guys, also important to mention Alvaro Carreras. Alvaro Carreras wants to go to Real Madrid. We already said that a few days ago. Now we can say that the contract of the player is almost ready. So the agreement on personal terms, Real Madrid, Alvaro Carreras, is almost ready, is almost done. Alvaro Carreras, after the Cup final, will also be clear with Benfica and will tell Benfica that his desire is to go to Real Madrid. Benfica are still waiting for an official bid from Real Madrid. At the moment, there is still no official bid on the table. Real Madrid are also respecting the timing, respecting Benfica with the final to play, and then the negotiation is expected to advance. But for sure, Real Madrid are advancing on player side with Alvaro Carreras and working also soon with Benfica to reach an agreement. 50 million euros release clause. Let's see if Real Madrid and Benfica can find a solution together. And also remember that Man United have a buyback clause, but they have no intention to activate it because Man United will invest on different positions. In January, they considered the return of Alvaro Carreras, then they decided to go for Patrick Dorgu in the January transfer window, and now Alvaro is the top target for Real Madrid at left back. Something to clarify also on another story to complete for today is Jonathan Tah. Jonathan Tah is always closer to joining Bayern. In this moment, despite Barcelona have been in talks for months with Jonathan Tah, there is still no final decision from the player, but Bayern presented a proposal, an official proposal to the player. What I'm hearing is that an important contract could be a 4-year deal and no longer a 3-year deal. So there is a possibility of a 4-year deal for Jonathan Tah at Bayern. Now, depends on the player, waiting on his green light. Bayern are ready, the financial proposal has been approved. Now, Jonathan Tah getting closer, but waiting for the final green light from the player, and then it will be a here we go. And so, guys, tell me your thoughts on all these stories from Gyökeres Kújó.
Yes, that's the latest update from the transfer wizard that is Fabrizio Romano. And in the last few minutes, I do believe he's dropped another update that I'd like to bring to you. In regards to Nico Williams, Real Madrid, Sesko, and Cherki being open to a Premier League move. Yes, let me share this. As we get these updates, remember, we are going to be having the Europa League final. 2 hours.
Decided to go for Dani Olmo, and then he said, I think now about Nico Williams, we are going to consider other players. So, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Fabrizio Romano here as always to keep you posted on the transfer market. Today, guys, we mentioned Real Madrid. One more signing is coming soon. That's the expectation. But also Benjamin Sesko, Ryan Cherki, Nico Williams. Let's jump into it together. And so, guys, I want to open today's video by mentioning once again Real Madrid. I was updating you on this story yesterday. Today, we can confirm the strategy of Real Madrid for the next signing, because Real Madrid had here we go for their new coach, Xabi Alonso, who is already working with the Real Madrid board. My understanding is that from next week, Xabi Alonso could also travel to Madrid to start having a direct face-to-face contact with people at Real Madrid, but the meetings are already taking place. Then they had here we go for Trent Alexander-Arnold, a story from more than 1 year ago, now completed. Trent will be a Real Madrid player, and then Dean Huijsen as new center-back. The next one can be the left-back, and for Alvaro Carreras, the strategy is clear. As mentioned yesterday, the player wants to go to Real Madrid. The contract is almost ready, just being decided if it's going to be a 5-year deal or 6-year deal. But Real Madrid are also open to doing a 6-year deal with Carreras, so the contract is not going to be a problem. Same for the salary. The player wants to move. What Real Madrid are going to do, as they have a good relationship with Benfica, is to wait formally to open club-to-club talks till the Taça de Portugal, the final of the domestic cup for Benfica, respecting the club. Not an easy moment for Benfica, also because Sporting won the league in Portugal, so they want to respect the player, the club, and the timing. And then this is why Real Madrid didn't close the deal yet for Alvaro Carreras, or didn't send any official bid, because they know Benfica in this moment are busy with the cup. They want to win the cup. After that, Real Madrid and Benfica will talk. Real Madrid will try to find a solution, avoid paying the 50 million euros that is close, trying to find a solution together on the payment terms, on the structure. So Real Madrid and Benfica will talk. The player will tell Benfica that he wants to go to Real Madrid. And so the next signing could be Alvaro Carreras for Real Madrid, with Florentino Perez, from what I'm hearing, also very open to this strategy to bring in more Spanish players. A Spanish coach, Xabi Alonso, Real Madrid coach, Xabi Alonso, but also Spanish players like Dean Huijsen, and also important to mention the Spanish player Alvaro Carreras as one more to add to the squad. So a strategy strongly approved by the president, Florentino Perez. Then, guys, let's move a bit to Leipzig. First of all, the agent of Jurgen Klopp today clarified that nothing is done with Roma despite reports in Italy. So something important to mention when we say about the Red Bull Group, in a difficult moment for the Red Bull Group, because Leipzig didn't even qualify for the Champions League, Europa League, Conference League, out of European competitions for the first time since 2016-2017. But also Red Bull Leipzig, something important to say is that my understanding is that Benjamin Sesko, same as Xavi Simons, Reynolds will leave the club this summer. We have to maintain Šeško as an option for several clubs around Europe. My understanding is that at the moment it's still not clear where Šeško is going, because there are many clubs interested in signing this top striker. Don't forget his numbers. Don't forget the numbers of Benjamin Šeško, scoring always more than 20 goals in a difficult season for Leipzig, with a coach like Marco Rose, who had a complicated season and got fired, also sometimes playing more on the wing rather than a number 9. So it was a difficult season for Leipzig, and Šeško was still delivering, still very young. This is why, for the potential of the players, there are many clubs interested. Let me only say, don't forget also Arsenal, because Arsenal are there for Benjamin Šeško. Arsenal still have Benjamin Šeško in their list. There are more clubs around Europe, but the story is absolutely open for the striker future. So one to watch for sure in the coming weeks. Then, guys, mentioning something else also regarding players potentially available this summer, Rayan Cherki is going to leave Olympique Lyon. We know that. My understanding is that we have to forget about the release clause as a traditional clause. So it's not about going there, put the money and get the player. That's what Borussia Dortmund tried to do in the January window, but Olympique Lyon insists that the clause is not valid. In France, the clause are not official. So you need to negotiate with Olympique Lyon to get Rayan Cherki. My understanding is that not only from Germany, but also from England, there is interest in Rayan Cherki, and the player could be open to a Premier League move. So that can be a concrete possibility for Rayan Cherki. That can be a solution for this summer transfer window to move to Premier League. Now his agent will explore all the opportunities, explore all the options, but Rayan Cherki is an attractive option for several clubs looking for a creative player to play behind the striker. They're going to discuss, they're going to try find a solution, and Rayan Cherki is going to be one of the names of this summer transfer window. For sure, I want to watch in the coming weeks. But the update today is that Premier League is an attractive destination for the player. We had many rumors also on Paris Saint-Germain, but my understanding is that already in the summer transfer window 2024, in January, many stories, but PSG never really entered into advanced negotiations for Rayan Cherki, and PSG at the moment are not proceeding with that one. Then if it changes with PSG, I will let you know, but the feeling is that Germany, England, maybe Italy, these kind of solutions could be more attractive for Rayan Cherki ahead of.
I feel like Rayan Cherki will be best in Germany and in Spain. Especially his skill set will be really appreciated in Spain, because he's very good at tiki-taka and all that close control football. And in England, I feel like he'd suffer because they're more physical than technical. But he'd also thrive in Italy, actually, so to think of it. But they require more robust players, less flair players. And he's a flair player, and he needs a league where he can express himself. And La Liga and the Bundesliga are the best leagues where if you want to express yourself and you're a person of his stature, so to say.
The summer transfer window, with the player open to moving also abroad. And then, guys, let's see what happens with Nico Williams. Important statement on Nico from the president of Barcelona, Joan Laporta, speaking to TV3. He said in the last 24 hours that Nico was an option for Barca 1 year ago alongside Dani Olmo. Then Barca decided to go for Dani Olmo. And then he said, I think now about Nico Williams, we are going to consider other players. So quite closing the door to Nico Williams. That was the message from Joan Laporta. At the moment, Barca have several options for the winger position, but they've not reactivated yet any concrete contact with Nico Williams. Then, for Nico, there is a release clause, around 50 million euros plus taxes, solidarity payments, and all of this. Then there is an important topic on the salary and the commission. So the package Nico Williams is really expensive. And this is why this deal was complicated in the recent years for all the clubs trying to approach Nico Williams. Let me mention that it's not only about the Nico and Barcelona story. It's not just about the appreciation of Barcelona. Premier League clubs love Nico Williams, especially Chelsea, Arsenal. These two clubs really love Nico Williams. Both Arsenal and Chelsea had contacts to understand how much is worth the whole package Nico Williams, how much will be the cost of the deal. So both clubs are well informed. Both clubs will sign a winger, because my expectation is for Arsenal, obviously, to sign a number 9, but also an important winger. Chelsea also to sign a number 9 and also an important winger. So both clubs will be very active on the market. Both of them love Nico Williams. But again, in this moment, it depends on the player. It really depends on the player, what he wants to do, and it's really important to understand the full package cost, because this Nico Williams deal can appear a bargain in terms of transfer fee. 50 million euros or something around that for the release clause is for sure a bargain for a player like Nico Williams, but the cost of the whole package, including the salary, including the commission, including everything in this deal, could be very expensive. This is why the English clubs are considering the move, trying to understand what the player wants to do, because we have to remind one thing. We already said that 1 year ago. Nico Williams is very happy at Athletic. He's very happy in Bilbao. His family is from there. His love for Bilbao is very clear. And so to sign Nico Williams is not something easy. Let's see what happens this summer.
Yeah, Nico Williams is actually one of the best wingers in Europe right now. With his skill set, his speed, he'd be an asset to any team in Europe right now, and especially a team like Arsenal. I feel like they'd really appreciate such a talent, and his price tag wouldn't really be that complicated for a Premier League club in regards to the spending power that most Premier League clubs have, especially those that have qualified for the Champions League. So we wait to see, but it's all about how good is the project that the club is presenting, how viable is it. And that's the same reason why you see players right now waiting for the season to come to an end so that they can understand who's going to be playing in the Champions League and who's not going to be playing in the Champions League, who's going to be in the Europa League. So because most leagues haven't completed yet, and we wait to see what happens with that. That's why you see Liam Delap delaying his decision on where he's going to move to. But yeah, let's move with the Bilbao story as we discuss exactly how Man United can beat Spurs. But basically, we'll be checking out how both teams set up and how they can basically overcome each other in this competition.
Europa League. How Manchester United Spurs in the Europa League final. Today, we're going to be diving into the tactics, the analysis, and of course, the statistics. And
this is courtesy of Statman Dave.
Ange Postecoglou. This is the biggest game in English football. 16th versus 17th in the Premier League to decide who plays in the Champions League next season. I don't quite know how we got here, but let's get this party started. Before we dive in, let's understand a little bit more about Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham Hotspur. Under Ange Postecoglou, Spurs have lined up in a 4-3-3. Their system features a goalkeeper that's comfortable in possession and two ball-playing defenders. Both fullbacks invert into midfield to support the defensive midfielder or move into attacking midfield. This frees the outside midfielders, who really play as number 10s, to advance into those inside channels if not filled by fullbacks. Postecoglou has Spurs play out from their goalkeeper with short passes, looking to draw pressure from the opponents and pass it through. Once pressure has been beaten, Spurs used to look carries and dribbles with fullbacks or the number 10s to quickly capitalise, often looking to create 1v1s in wide areas for their wingers. Playing out from the back is inherently a high-risk, high-reward strategy, but for Spurs, it's even more dangerous, because both fullbacks cover large distances to invert into midfield. If the ball is lost, the wide areas are totally uncontested zones that can quickly be counter-attacked. In fact, only Brighton have conceded more goals from counter-attacks in the Premier League this season than Spurs. Defensively, Spurs adopt a 4-1-4-1 or a narrow 4-2-3-1 and press very aggressively. They look to force the ball backwards with pressure and push their defensive line high to compress the pitch. With the fewest opposition passes per defensive action and the fourth most turnovers in the Premier League, Spurs' press is pretty decent. But when you consider that they've got the fourth most expected goals conceded in the league, their defensive strategy is far from perfect. The intensity of Postecoglou's football is both its biggest strength and biggest weakness. Whilst it can catch teams out with the speed of play and the number of bodies they throw forward, it can also catch Spurs out themselves. Their press requires a lot of energy, so there can be times where Spurs rest and don't put pressure on the ball. Meanwhile, the opportunistic nature of their press, waiting to pounce on backwards passes, can create a wide open press that can easily be played around. Similarly, their press can easily be drawn down one flank before bypassing it with a switch of play. So now we understand more about Spurs' system. Let's start to break down that question. How can Manchester United beat Spurs? I think the first thing that United need to focus on is having an effective press and trying to dominate possession. So let's dive into that first. How should United press Spurs? In terms of Tottenham Hotspur, where you don't want them is in the final third. They throw bodies forward. We're talking both centre-backs, the 8, the attacking midfielder, both the wingers. They simply overload you with sheer numbers. They've got quality players in terms of dribbling and 1v1s. So what you want to do is you want to try and dominate possession and stop them playing out from the back. So we're going to take the blueprint from Oliver Glasner. Recently, Spurs really struggled with Crystal Palace in the Premier League, with Palace winning 2-0. So first and foremost, what Manchester United need to adopt is a 3-4-3 pressing structure with a number 9 dropping deeper and man marking one of the 6s. From these types of situations, the next thing you...
Yes, because from literally that screenshot, you can actually see what he's talking about. Because once you press their midfield and you deny them those passing lanes in the middle of the pitch, you see how they are unable to link the attack to the defense, and they're unable to, because now you have an overload. It's more of a 5v3 where, and you remember that Porro and Udogie will be, sorry about that,
thing there. But moving forward to long balls and thus dominate possession. And that's exactly what Palace did in the Premier League. They had 53% of the ball, which is quite surprising considering the thing you want is the attack.
Exactly. So what you get to see is with Ahmad tucking in and then exploding out the pitch when Udogie tucks in and leaves this space open, which leaves Van de Ven having a lot of distance to cover, which opens up. And if you have Dogu pressing Porro on this side and Garnacho trying to make this run between Romero and Porro, and you have Højlund making this run as well, it forces the team backwards. It forces them to sit back, and first of all, their keeper is really amazing. Vicario is really amazing. So you have to, but that's why you start this. I actually, apart from Luke Shaw, I agree with this from Luke Shaw and Mazraoui. Mazraoui should be where Euro is playing. Euro should be the left-sided centre-back, and Maguire can play the central centre-back. And then you can have Casemiro and Bruno, because Tottenham Hotspurs play a very high line, and naturally you'll want to have players that can run behind that line. Okay, so if you have Højlund, whose ability to run behind the line since his Atalanta days were amazing, he did amazing and scored a lot of goals through that. Garnacho as well has some pace on him, and Ahmad as well has enough trickery to be able to maneuver that. So, but you have to be, and if Bergvall is playing, this is the most dangerous player on the pitch for Tottenham Hotspurs. But I'm not sure if he's fit to play this game or not. It's the same thing with Xerxes for Manchester United and De Ligt. We're not sure. They might be fit enough to play the game. They might not. And both sets of players have been pictured flying to Bilbao with their respective squads. And that's, in my opinion, a very good psychological trick on the managers on opposing teams. Because now you don't know if these players are fit or not. So once it comes to preparing your starting 11, you have to put your best foot forward. But Garnacho, in my opinion, as well, so I guess it's 3 players. Garnacho should come off the bench. That should be Mason Mount. We need the energy that Mount brings to the press from that position. Then you can have Ahmad, Højlund, Casemiro, Bruno, Dogu, and Dalot, and then Mazraoui, Maguire, and Yoro, and of course Onana as the keeper. And after that, all you can hope for is as minimal mistakes from the players as possible, because the pressure will get to this Tottenham side.
Attacking midfielder to be the player putting the...
And if you understand the amount of finals Manchester has played in the last 5 years, we've played 5 finals in the last 5 years, and it has to click at some point for these players, especially the experienced ones, and they will be able to lead the team through the game, as opposed to Tottenham that hasn't played in any final in a while.
Pressure on the centre-back in possession. You want both wing-backs being really aggressive and being ready to jump at the right time. You want the near-side wing-back being high and the far-side wing-back being low. What this allows you to do is force Spurs into long balls and thus dominate possession. And that's exactly what Palace did in the Premier League. They had 53% of the ball, which is quite surprising considering Oliver Glasner's side is reasonably a counter-attacking team that do look for direct plays through Jean-Philippe Mateta. So let's take a look at that in action. We pick up the play with Spurs having possession with their goalkeeper. You can clearly see the structure. You've got Jean-Philippe Mateta sitting on one DM. You've got Eze kind of covering that position, that halfway covering the pass into defensive midfield, but being ready to jump. We can see the left wing back out of shot, who's going to instantly put pressure on the football. This forces Spurs to go backwards. From that point, we see a bit of a chain reaction. The 8 jumps, Eze jumps, and he puts pressure on the football. But quite clearly, we can see Mateta, the centre forward, picking up their number 6. This forces Spurs to play a lateral pass to the centre-back. Once again, the attacking midfielder jumps. The wing-back then gets involved, and we can see Jean-Philippe Mateta sticking on the defensive midfielder. This forces Spurs into a pretty risky forward pass. That's something that Manchester United should really adopt. Having that ability to press them high and squeeze them high at the pitch is going to be a recipe for Amorim's success. And just thinking about this from a tactical perspective, Manchester United need energy in their attacking midfield line. They need players that are going to have an engine to press and cause Spurs problems early doors. And I think that's why Mason Mount should start this game. Not only have we seen a little bit of resurgence in form of Mason Mount, but his energy is going to be vitally important, especially at the start, allowing Alejandro Garnacho to be an impact sub. On the other side, of course, Amad Diallo is a very good presser in terms of the statistics, defensive actions leading to goals, and Mad ranks number 1 in Europe. So we've got 2 players there, an attacking midfield that can put pressure on the football. So it's all nice me saying Man United should do this, here's the idea, but if Ruben Amorim's never done it, then surely it's not going to happen in the final. Well, actually, I take you back to the Europa League game against Real Sociedad. Manchester United were very, very good at dealing with Zubamendi. We can clearly see the approach I just mentioned there is exactly the approach United used in the game against Sociedad. We could see Rasmus Højlund sitting on the defensive midfielder and the 2 attacking midfielders making a front 3 from a pressing perspective. The ball gets shipped back, and once again, we can see the structure. The 2 attacking midfielders dealing with the outside centre-backs, and Rasmus Højlund sitting on the DM, as well as the near-side wing-back being ready to jump if the ball's played to the right-back. Of course, United do really well in this situation. Joshua Zirkzee forces the centre-back backwards, curves his run really well, and forces the goalkeeper into a long ball that Matheus de Ligt recycles, and Bruno Fernandes gets on the ball. So important for Manchester United. They can play this way. I think when we look at other approaches that United have used, which they should not use in this game, is arguably a little bit of a switch. It's when United kind of press a little bit higher with the front 3, let's say, and they jump one of the central midfielders onto the 6, creating kind of a 5-1-1-3 situation. This is something that Man United should not do because of one reason. You look at the man-to-man options in midfield. If we just look at that central zone, you've got a 3v2 for Tottenham. This is something that happened when United played Athletic Bilbao in the Europa League game away in Spain. So we can clearly see the structure. We've got the front 3, we've got one of the central midfielders a lot higher than the other, and the back 5 being made. The issue in these situations is you've got a 3v2 in that central zone, and why United need to drop their 9 on the 6 versus playing an 8 higher on the 6, because these types of things happen. Bilbao rotate the ball. The 8 moves off the back of Manu Ugarte, who drops back to a more defensively minded position. And straight away, United's pressing structure is broken. There's a really easy ball into the 6. And again, Bilbao can build down the flank, create a really good opportunity with a cross into the box. This is what United need to not do. They need to not play this kind of 5-1-1-3 structure. It very much needs to be, as what we may have mentioned previously, that front three sitting on the defensive midfield line, with the outside midfielders being the ones to press the outside centre-backs, and very much having the number 9 sitting on, of course, a defensive midfielder. This is what Man United need to do to press Spurs effectively out of the back. On to number 2, how should Man United counter-attack Spurs? Spurs are so susceptible to counter-attacks. Only Brighton have conceded more goals from fast breaks in the Premier League this season. And there is a tactical reason why. When Spurs do get into the final third, what you tend to see is both fullbacks be in super offensive positions. At times, you'll see Pedro Porro in the inside right position. Other times, you'll see him high and wide. Same with Destiny Udogie. You'll see him in the inside position, or you'll see him super wide, which opens up big space on the counter-attack for Manchester United, basically behind both fullbacks. If you can attack the channels, you're into a position where you can really create opportunities. I think from a mid-block perspective, United should adopt the kind of 5-4-1 structure, with the centre-forward picking up the 6. From these areas, what United need to do is try and force Spurs to play wide. From these positions, United could jump on those players, press super aggressively in that zone, try and win the ball back, and then instantly, what we're saying there is attack into the channels with the dribble or some combination plays. The inverted fullbacks or wingbacks, shall we say, of Tottenham Hotspur are a reason why they're so easy to counter on. Once again, we've got another example from Oliver Glasner's Crystal Palace. Pick up the play with Spurs building. You've got a kind of 4-2-4 structure at the moment, but wait till you see where these fullbacks are. It's pretty crazy. So as Palace look to force Spurs out wide, they're going to start to engage. The ball's worked out to the winger. And again, Jed Spence, who's playing left back, makes that underlap. But as the ball's played back inside, just have a look where Spurs' defensively minded players are. We've got both of the DMs highlighted and both of the fullbacks. Arguably, all those 4 players are ahead of the football. That is suicidal, because if you lose a duel like this, as we see with Daniel Munoz, wins a tackle, and of course, Jean-Philippe Mateta uses his power and his strength after picking up the 6, again, something we mentioned previously, man marking the 6, because then you become a counter-attacking platform. It's so important. You're in a position now where you've got a great break on. You've arguably got a 4-on-2 from simply winning a duel. You're forcing them to the wide area, winning the duel, you're attacking.
Exactly what we were saying earlier.
Into the channels, and we see Mateta feed Daniel Munoz, who crashes against the bar. If he gets his head up, he could find 2 of his teammates and a 2v2 on the back post. Again, these are situations United can easily get into, and it's how Ruben Amorim should counter Ange Postecoglou. So let's now talk about attack. How should Manchester United play through Spurs' press? Because quite frankly, it's really open when they play teams that play through at the back. So in terms of their setup, it very much is a narrow 4-2-3-1. In terms of the key roles that we're going to focus on exploiting, of course, it's the outside attacking midfielders, pressing the outside centre-backs. Due to Spurs not having wing-backs like Manchester United have, there is big space either in the wide areas, or alternatively, if Spurs can play through, there is issues at attacking midfield, or alternatively, the biggest issue of the lot, that's that high line. If you don't have pressure on the football, you can't play a high line. That has been the 101 problem from Ange Postecoglou's perspective as Tottenham manager. So let's talk about how United can kind of control these situations. Number 1 is playing the ball out to the wide area and basically allowing the Spurs press to collapse over. From these positions, what you tend to see is a bit of an option for a ball to the far side central midfielder. So as Spurs kind of like collapse over to the flank you're playing on, you've drawn them all over. You're basically pulling them to an area of the pitch where you can dictate the play. From that zone, what Manchester United should do and work is working the ball back to the goalkeeper. And then what you tend to see against Spurs is that far side central midfielder being...
Breaking news, after the signing of Matheus Cunha, Manchester United are accelerating the bid to sign Victor Gyökeres from Sporting Lisbon. United are the first European club to make concrete moves for the talisman.
In those outside attacking midfielders. From a situation there, if you can...
And as we had said last week, the transfer window is really going to speed up in the early days due to the Club World Cup.
A direct ball in behind the defence. United need to run.
And that's not just for for clubs that are playing the Club World Cup, but for everybody, because if you are not in a position to pull off these transfers, you'll have your targets signed by your rivals.
Højlund's strengths at Atalanta, and we've not seen it at Man United enough, but he needs to be constantly making runs in this game. That high line is dangerous, so make those runs, get in behind. But again, from those positions, not only is there space when you draw the attacking midfielder in, that's basically sitting in a wing position, but as well, what you could do is cause other issues by rotating a central midfielder into a wide area and pushing the wing back high. This is why Bruno Fernandes has to play central midfield for United, because Manu Ugarte hasn't got this ability to find the through ball like Bruno does. What you could do from this position, again, you've drawn him in, you've pushed Dorgu high, you've moved Bruno Fernandes wide, you're basically getting a free pass for Bruno to check inside and then find a ball in behind the defence, once again for Rasmus Højlund. Having a central midfielder drifting into this wide area is so important to break the Spurs' pressure. So let's dive back into the Tottenham versus Palace game. We've got two really good examples to highlight playing through the Spurs' pressure and then playing direct. So pick up the play with Tyreek Mitchell in possession. Odebear's in a pretty good position, Tottenham's right midfielder. But as the ball's played back, they start to draw him into a position where you've basically created a massive overload on the flank. So as he presses on the pass backwards, he curves his run pretty well, blocking the pass into central midfield. But you got a 3v1. It's a simple move. The ball gets played out to Mitchell, and Palace are in a really good spot. From this position,
this game is worth 100 million euros.
From any position,
to whichever club wins this,
in behind the defence,
they will get 100 million euros from the UEFA Champions League.
So what we want United's wing-backs not to do is play back.
That is on top of the transfer funds that they already set aside for this transfer summer.
Back inside like this. Just look as soon as...
So it allows you to sign so many more players. And then you look, these are clubs that have created a habit of playing in Europe, both Tottenham and Manchester United, and they're currently sitting at the bottom half of the table. So, and this is the only chance you get to appear in Europe next season. Who do you think wins this game, in your opinion?
As this pass is played, the Spurs players jump on it. We've got three players that basically press the ball zone. Will Hughes plays a pretty poor ball, and Kulusevski turns, gets out, and feeds Tell. This is a dangerous situation United don't want to be in. If they work the ball to wing back, they escape the pressure, play direct, play forward. Big thing there. But moving forward to our other concept, which we mentioned previously, I think when looking at Manchester United's build-up, they need to adopt this as well. So pick up the play with Dean Henderson in possession. Dejan Kulusevski is the nominal number 9 in this game. He's going to put pressure on the ball. We can see the setup from Spurs. The two outside attacking midfielders dealing with the two outside centre-backs, and your DM is getting picked up by their attacking mid. But just look at Jefferson Lerma top of shot. We've got highlighted where his natural position would be to where he's actually gone. This creates massive problems for Spurs' system, causes humongous disorganisation. The ball's worked out wide to Guehi, the pressure comes in from the outside centre-back, who Man United need to draw in. You play out wide, and now you've got a central midfielder in acres of space. This is where we want Bruno Fernandes to be. From this position, causes this massive amount of discomfort. Pedro Porro is so late in pressure. He's also probably the wrong player to do the pressure, but you're in a position now where you have a ball in behind the defence on Lerma's stronger foot. We can see the disorganisation. You've got the right centre-back moving to deal with a wing-back. You've got a DM dropped into a centre-back position, and the ball in behind the defence is superb from Lerma, but something that Bruno Fernandes could do to Rasmus Højlund. That ball's played through. The turn from Mateta is very good. He links with Eze, and it moves on to our next point. We're going to talk about goal scoring very, very soon. One of the things United need to do is attack with width, get wing-backs into crossing positions, and allow them to hit the...
And that's why I keep on saying I want to have Diogo Dalot playing at right back and right wing back, and Dorgu playing at left wing back. Both of them can actually whip a cross in. And that's why we need Ahmad in the 10 as well. He's got an amazing shot on him and ability to go either in or out.
The back post. When I talk about the back post, I'm talking about the space in between the outside centre-back and the far side centre-back. So you're looking to hit that back post zone. Munoz does it very well here, carries into the penalty area, hits it for Sarr, who puts the ball in the back of the net. There's something United need to do. All of those concepts, Bruno Fernandes pulling wide, then working the ball back through midfield to the wing back, using that situation and space, ball into the box, back post. It's a recipe for success for United. And if we take a closer look at the pass, it's brilliant. But Spurs' line is so high. There's no pressure on the football. If Bruno can get into this zone, simply going to be goals for United. So let's stick with the attack. How can Man United score goals against Spurs? And the big thing we mentioned previously is getting the ball into the wide areas and getting crosses into the box. Simply working the ball into these areas and then finding the back post is a recipe for success against Tottenham. They're really bad at defending the space between the far side centre-back and the far side full-back. In terms of creating those crossing situations, either simply, working the ball into wide areas and using an overlapping wing back is a good area to do it. Alternatively, looking to maybe switch the play, pulling the fullback out, hitting a little underlap, again, is an area to get shots, but also crosses into the box. Manchester United should use both. The results of this are going to be good. It's going to be goals. In terms of Pedro Porro, he's a very poor aerial defender. He's won only 38% of his aerial duels in the league this season, which rank him in the bottom 18% of fullbacks in the Premier League. That is an area to attack for United. So let's take a look at some clips. So in terms of the method of creating these opportunities, we're going to start with the underlap. Spurs' wide players are very poor when tracking back. So once again, we're going to be jumping into Tottenham's game with Crystal Palace. A good example, again, similar system that Man United use. So the ball works out to Daniel Munoz out wide. The link-up play from Mateta is very good. The underlap from Sarr comes. What this does is it creates space, once again, for Daniel Munoz to make a similar run inside. Spurs' centre-back's drawn over. The full-back is all over the place. Jed Spence is putting pressure on the football, but he doesn't see this move on his blind side, which allows Daniel Munoz to simply run off the Spurs defence, take a really good touch in a massive amount of space, find the back post, and Palace probably should be 1 goal up in the game. So moving on to the attacking midfielder, making that underlap, we've got an example from West Ham's game against Tottenham with Jarrod Bowen scoring a really good goal. As West Ham attack, they basically break the Spurs press and they get to a situation where Wan-Bissaka's on the switch in acres of space. But just look how lackadaisical the Spurs defenders are. They can't be bothered. They can't put pressure on the ball. They're waiting to react, which again is the wrong thing to do in football. You need to proactively defend. It allows Wan-Bissaka to find that underlap. Spurs can't deal with it. And again, Jarrod Bowen slots the ball in the back of the net. So United can use underlaps to create opportunities. But also, I think, in terms of the player that they need to play as number 9, I think Rasmus Højlund could be the perfect guy. So let's look at United creating from overlaps in the Europa League this season. So the first one coming against Athletic Bilbao. Once again, the ball's worked out wide to the wing-back. And actually, the attacking midfielder, Amad Diallo, provides that overlap. But I think in terms of the big thing here, just look at Rasmus Højlund's positioning. He's positioned himself between the far side centre-back and far side full-back. This is absolutely perfect against Tottenham. This is where the number 9 needs to be. In terms of the play from Amad, it's very good. On the overlap, takes a really good touch past the fullback, gets to the byline and crosses. And Rasmus Højlund is in that perfect position that we want to see him against Tottenham to provide a very simple finish. And I think that's an idea that United need to take. I definitely start Rasmus Højlund for this game because actually he does this move quite well. He runs the channels quite well. There's a lot of things that I like. And later on, of course, Harry Maguire can come on the pitch, so it doesn't really matter anyway. So let's stick with that Rasmus Højlund idea, but have another look at an example of United overlapping to create chances. So United are pretty well set in that kind of 5-4-1 structure. They got good pressure on the ball. They got 3v3 in midfield, which was good in their mid block, not their high block against Bilbao. Rasmus Højlund, of course, is waiting in a striking position. Ugarte jumps, wins the ball, linked through Rasmus Højlund to Garnacho. Then we wait for the overlap with Mazraoui, providing the width. The ball goes into the box, and once again, Rasmus Højlund is in the good position. The far side centre-back, he's running off him. Again, brings him down. United with a penalty, and Vivian gets sent off. But Højlund's movement against Bilbao is a reason why he should start against Tottenham Hotspur. That movement in a really, really key area that we've spoken about. Getting a player that's very comfortable at attacking that kind of zone, either on the far side centre-back or making a run in behind him or even targeting Pedro Porro of long balls, is a real reason why Manchester United should start the Danish striker. So to conclude, team selection is going to be vital against Tottenham. Manchester United need energy and attacking midfield in a Madden Mason Mount. They need a 9 that's comfortable at dropping off and picking up the 6, but also capable at hitting that space between the centre-back and the full-back. Bruno Fernandes needs to play central midfield because of his quality in possession. His ability to drift wide and get on the ball is going to be vital for Manchester United to create situations, to look for through balls on the Spurs' high line. I think playing players like Victor Lindelof and Manu Ugarte in this game with Spurs' pressing traps in central midfield and at centre-back is a recipe for disaster. In terms of the wing-backs, they need to rotate through the 90 minutes. Of course, starting with Dorgu and Mazraoui, but seeing the likes of Amad Diallo coming on if United need a bit of attacking impetus with Alejandro Garnacho going to right attacking midfield. Of course, in terms of the other side as well, you could potentially see Luke Shaw operating as a left wing back if the game state is needed. I think the big thing with United is keeping it fresh, having players like Kobbie Mainoo come on to continue the energy that Mason Mount starts with. And finally, if everything doesn't go well, there is one solution. And that, of course, is putting Harry Maguire up front and playing long balls into the box. Ruben Amorim has enough here. I think big players within the United team have played in big finals before. We're talking about the likes of Harry Maguire, Bruno Fernandes, Casemiro, Luke Shaw, and of course Mason Mount, who we just replaced. So we'll have to put him quickly back into the team. All have big experience in cup finals. But I think the big thing for Man United, Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes, the leaders of the side, are going to be so important. Think about Casemiro's first final at Man United. The goal in the EFL Cup final against Newcastle. First goal of the game, a massive header. It's an area that Spurs also struggle in set pieces. So United need to look for Casemiro when hitting set pieces, especially early parts of the game. But I think that experience and that idea that they've already been to finals is a big one of why I think United are going to win this game. United haven't had a great season. 16th in the Premier League, but Spurs have been worse. There is so many areas of their team that I think that is an area United could attack. So that is how Manchester United can beat Spurs.
That's such an interesting analogy, courtesy of Statman Dave. If you needed to know what was going to be happening tomorrow, probably at around 10 East African time, this is the biggest game since the last game when Manchester played, basically. But all jokes aside, when you have a game worth 100 million euros, you play your heart out. You don't even most people never get to play in such a prestigious event their entire lives. Oh man. But yeah, Tottenham are in Bilbao already. Let's get to check that out before we come to a conclusion of today's show. Yeah, as they were training today in Bilbao.
Tens of thousands of Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur fans will be making the journey to Bilbao for the Europa League final tomorrow. If you're thinking of heading out there, you might want to hear from this man. Travel expert Simon Calder joins us right now. Simon, thanks very much for joining us. There'll be lots of fans who'll be hanging on your every word. And there has been talk of strikes at airports today and tomorrow. So how will this affect fans that are travelling?
Okay, the first thing is, Matt, don't worry about strikes. I've actually just been down to Gatwick to check things out there, absolutely running perfectly normally. And I'll tell you what, the plane spotters are out in force today because you've got almost a kind of Eurovision of airlines flying out of mainly Stansted Airport, the local airport in London for Spurs, and Manchester Airport. Just checking them out. All these airlines you've never heard of: Freebird of Malta, Trade Air of Croatia, Privileged Style of Spain have just flown in from Stansted to Bilbao. They're now going back out to Manchester to pick up another load of supporters. And I tell you what, If you want to get out there tonight and you're in the London area, I've just checked, and on the Spanish airline Vueling, there's a flight from Gatwick, 20 to 8 this evening. I've just checked it out. £84 one way. And there'll be people watching you say, hang on, I paid 500 quid for my flight. Well, yeah, always worth waiting. Big problem is, of course, you get to Bilbao, and that's when you hit the very, very high accommodation charges. Just been looking, the cheapest I could find was a bed in an 8-room dormitory in Bilbao. That's £300. Alternative is nice boutique hotel, double room there, £6,300. So yeah, it's extraordinary times. And well, I calculate somewhere between 60 and 80,000 fans, split roughly equally between Spurs and United, are heading out there. So it's obviously distorting the travel market hugely, but hopefully they're going to have a great time, whether they're in the stadium or going to the very good fan zone by the banks of the river Nervion, where the whole park is going to be taken over.
Wow, that is amazing, isn't it? So you can get out there possibly from Gatwick for a decent price, but once you get there, it's going to be very hard to try and find somewhere to stay, which is not ideal. Some fans, I guess, would have been thinking about other ways to get there. Is getting there by boat an option?
Yeah, there's been actually some pretty good deals going out of Portsmouth to Bilbao. Now, the vessel arrives, I believe, this morning, having been sailing since Sunday night to get to Bilbao, P&O ferries. Sorry, forgive me, Brittany ferries. Now, I don't know quite what it's going to be like on board, because the cabins got sold out a long time ago. So there would have been an awful lot of people who paid about £200 one way to get there. So, yeah, that was good. I very much, talking to fans, there's just so many people who've been driving all the way down through France. Of course, you get to the southwestern corner, place called Hendaye, and then you're only, an hour and a half from Bilbao there. The great thing is, if you take a car, you can...
But yeah, let's fast forward that to the Spurs training center.
And Sunny Rudravajula is in Manchester for us. We're going to go to Sunny in a moment, but let's head to Bilbao first. And Dan, Tottenham have arrived in the city. How are things looking out there right now? Are there more fans in the vicinity?
Yeah, good morning, Matt. I mean, you were just hearing from Simon Calder there about, travel options for fans and whatnot. Well, I can give you a bit of a first-hand experience, because I got to speak to a few fans traveling over from England over the last 32 hours who got a ferry from Portsmouth to arrive in Bilbao early hours of this morning. I got a coach with them from the port all the way to the city centre, a mix of Manchester United and Tottenham fans. And it's fair to say both weren't feeling all that confident ahead of tomorrow's final, but all in good spirits. And I think over the last kind of 24 hours, especially this morning, definitely seeing some more Tottenham and Manchester United fans along the streets in their shirts. I'm sure by this afternoon, this evening, we'll see plenty more. But as you mentioned, Tottenham already here as a squad. They arrived last night. We brought you those pictures on Sky Sports News, and my colleague Dolmesh Sheth reported incredibly that Ange Postecoglou has brought the whole squad to Bilbao, not just the matchday squad, but also the players who are already ruled out through injury. Dejan Kulusevski, who had an operation on his knee, ruled out for the rest of the season. He's with the squad. James Maddison, also ruled out for the rest of the season. He is also with the squad. So clearly Postecoglou trying to really bring this team together on what is a huge final to deliver that first trophy for 17 years. The interesting thing a bit later on we'll bring you is, of course, open training. That will be around 4:30 after Ange Postecoglou's news conference at 3:45. But I think in that open training session, when you're looking at who could be there, I think the big player we all want to see is Lucas Bergvall. Will he recover in time to play any part in tomorrow's final? He was so effective against United when they last faced each other at the end of February, and he's become such a key player for Tottenham as well. Pape Matar Sarr as well. I was at the game against Aston Villa on Friday. He went off with what Ange Postecoglou described as a bit of a back injury, but he said it was nothing to worry about. So also looking forward to making sure he is there in training a bit later today. But interesting for both sides. Matt, and as I said, look at where we are. I mean, we heard from Simon there. We got the beautiful Guggenheim Museum behind us, and I think I might do a bit more exploring a bit later on too.
I think you should, mate. You're a very cultured man. I know that. Get in that museum. We'll be back with Dan plenty of times throughout the day. Right. Let's head to Manchester now. Join our reporter, Sunny Rudravajula, who is there. Hello, Sunny. Actually, the weather's much better in Manchester than it is in Bilbao. Who knew? What does the day look like for United then?
Yeah, I'm absolutely sweltering right now. I know it's a little bit cloudy where Daniel is. Yeah, boiling here in Manchester. And actually, United are sticking to their usual European plan. So training here and then getting a flight over and then press conference in the evening. So, yeah, the starting here today, the players have been coming in this morning. We've got an open training session. Officially at 10, I think it might be more like 10:15. Then they're going to get on a flight from Manchester Airport. No convoluted journeys for them, of course. That's around 3 o'clock. And in the evening today, there's a press conference. Ruben Amorim will be having a Stadio San Mamés together with a couple of Manchester United players as well. So as far as the schedule goes, they're sticking to the game plan. Now, we've got open training here later on this morning. And, yeah, United in this terrible run at the moment. Both sides aren't particularly in great form, are they? But United 16th in the table, 8 games without a win. And that defeat to Chelsea was their 18th defeat of the season, which is still quite remarkable to think of a Man United side that are in this situation. But, of course, winning the Europa League would change the mood. We've got a list of players we've got to double check on. So Aidan Heaven came off the bench in that Chelsea game, so he should be one of those players available. Same with Toby Collier as well. The list of players who will be keeping an eye out on today, as far as whether they are potentially available to make the squad for the final. Diogo Dalot has got a calf injury. He's kind of racing to get back into that squad. Lenny Yoro's injured with a foot injury. Matthijs de Ligt has got a knock as well. So those are the couple there. Chido Obi, by the way, the young starlet striker, he's ineligible for this competition, with Joshua Zirkzee and Lisandro Martinez both out for the rest of the season. So that's what we're going to keep our eye on as far as open training goes. In the meantime, I'm going to find a little bit of shade here because I really am getting boiling. Not the best day to be wearing a suit jacket either way.
You do that, man.
Yeah, but that is basically what is the biggest game of the week. And tomorrow we'll be preparing for... We'll be preparing for one of the biggest games that might determine the rest of my week. But but it will be an amazing watch. I hope you're all excited as I am. From the fun hatred perspective of it, shout out to all the Arsenal and Chelsea fans and Man City fans and Liverpool fans, all rooting for Manchester to lose this game to Tottenham so that they can banter us to death. But yeah, we always find a way to win. Never write us out. We'll always come back and win a game. Shout out to Jobida. She's out here. Yo, how you doing, Joby? Y'all out there doing the most? Enjoying anaitwa Suluhu. See you. Mwenye masulubu. Oh. Yeah, shout out to y'all. Hope y'all are having a great time. And I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place, as we get to talk about what is going on in sport. Till then, ciao.